Hey, Eli. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Kevin? I just noticed something kind of disturbing on our pre-roll video, which is 100% AI generated. It kind of looked like we embrace at the end of it. Like, did your old marketing guy do that intentionally? Is that just like a little parting jab?
I think
Is that what AI
my
tech pros do? Is they embrace when they see each other, just but in a weird kind of side hug way?
so my favorite thing that I created in Sora, sort of RIP Sora, which of course was the pretty fun to play with, but commercially dubious
Commercially
OpenAI,
useless.
commercially useless video generation tool for OpenAI. And I think they killed it when somebody realized they were spending like $15 million a day or something like on it for people to
Chump
create
change. Chump change
duck
in the venture world.
videos
Yeah.
and things like that. But my absolute favorite video that I created was like, teleoperators basically with robotics. And it looks like it's this like really warm and cozy affair of two robots in this cozy living room. And then it backs away and it's two plumber looking guys with their like video like Oculus is on and they kind of look at each other and they give each other a big hug. I'm really proud of that one. I kept it like most of the rest of my Sora library is gone, but I have
I
that
haven't
one.
even opened the app in so long. Can you still open it and see your
Now
videos, or
you
it's
could
all
for a
gone? I
minute.
I downloaded a bunch of them to my photo roll on my phone, so I think I still have some. I think one of my favorites was I had an Optimus-looking robot I was bringing into the home and showing him around, and then my cat just, like, attacks him out of nowhere as an intruder. Like, I really quite enjoyed that one.
Because cats would. They totally would.
Cats
So I
would
mean
be like, "What is this?"
this is practical, right? Okay, so I
Wait,
said
are we
commercial.
gonna talk about cats now on the show?
So I said commercially dubious, but I actually did use a number of Sora videos in a number of different ways that were really cool and they were really easy to generate. And it was a real unlock for me. But with Sora gone, your video options are really pretty hard to get to. Are you close enough to this that you can talk to it? Or I have some stuff I'd love to cover.
Am I close enough to Sora?
No, if you're close enough to video generation, have you been doing much video generation?
Not lately, but it's funny you mentioned Sora and commercial viability. So my brother-in-law has a D2C brand and he has this kind of backyard game. And he was like, just spending so much time and money trying to get footage of people playing the game and doing cool tricks and shots. And he was like, wow, Sora would be such an amazing unlock if I could just get it to render the game to look how the game actually looks. Instead of having an extra side or the net is missing or the paddle's a different color, like he would just try to regen it over and over and over again. And the exact same problem with VO3 too. It
So
just trying to get the product to look right. And I know there are third parties that are basically using that engine, but can then nail things like the specific artifacts inside of the video. So
well, the key to a lot of this is A roll versus B roll, and the idea that perfect is the enemy of good. So, in a lot of cases like that, where you need to have something really specific, you probably want to do more traditional filming for the specific and match the style of what you filmed for, let's call it the A roll, to the B
yeah,
roll that you're using. And people want it to be automagic, and it's just it's not
it's
quite there yet.
and there's just shots and use cases where that's not going to work, right? Where it's like this is the product, and people have to be using the product, and that's the whole role. There is no B roll. That's the whole thing. It's like there were just different angles. There was some different kind of panning iPhone shots, and then a couple drone shots. All stuff that you could theoretically AI gen, but you got to get the actual assets in the video to look consistent. And that can be really tough. I mean, even if you've tried to use image generation for why did my logo end up with this extra little thing sticking out on this one? And now I can't just get it back on track to do the thing that I want to do. It's just one of the weird AI things. And it doesn't matter if it's copy or code or video or images, you kind of bump into the same thing sometimes over.
Okay, but I think for our audience, it's important to kind of lay out where the technology sits. So you mentioned VO, which Google VOs is the Google engine, which is actually very cool and very powerful as far as being able to put out scene-based imagery. It's also become pretty expensive.
Mhm.
You could generate 8 seconds, and I believe the last time I was playing with this a couple weekends ago, it was about 80 cents per generation for 8 seconds of video. And remember, you're kind of playing prompt roulette here a little bit. So,
Also, depending on the resolution output you want to,
the
like, you'll get
resolution
upcharged.
output, et
Yeah.
cetera. And, pro tip is run it at low resolution until you get in the neighborhood of where you want it, and then start running it as higher resolution from there. But, you hear tell about like the Sundance Film Festival, the 8.5 minute fully AI generated video. And then you look into how many takes it took them to get that right. And it's thousands and thousands and thousands of
It
takes.
was more than a whole crew of actors and support.
Well, it was the one I'm thinking about is would have been like impossible to do, but it was thousands and thousands of dollars of tokens
Yeah,
to do it and a lot of patience. So
yeah.
VIA 3 is one that you can do it. The other one that I have been totally blown away by, but we Americans don't really have access to, is the Chinese SeeDance. Have you played with
Yeah.
SeeDance?
I haven't played with it, but I've seen some of the outputs that are pretty mind-blowing.
So SeeDance is technically we're cut off from it, but you can access it through something called Higgs Field, and Higgs Field will basically it's doing arbitrage. It has access to the model, but it's pretty expensive to use Higgs Field. But the outputs are absolutely amazing as far as being like seamless and like well generated. Other tools that you run into, anything else in this realm that people should maybe check out?
I don't know. I feel like there's just a whole slew of third-party tools that are basically leaning on VO for the work, but kind of like you have a bunch of web dev tools or design tools like Lovable that are calling on the LLMs to do the heavy lifting, but they've just made it a lot more user-friendly to be able to get to the output that you're looking for whatever specific workflow you have. I feel like in my Instagram feed, I just get more and more ads every day for these. Like there's a lot of them coming out because, like you said, it's not only it's expensive, but what makes it really expensive is that just because you didn't use the right prompt or you didn't happen to get the right output on that dice roll, you're still paying for it, right? So if you can pay a little extra upfront, like you pay the subscription and this is kind of what you do, it's a centerpiece of your workflow, you're probably going to get to the results you want faster with a lot of these tools. And who's to say if they're going to stick around? Because, what we see is that the frontier labs just roll more and more of these user friendly features into their products over time. And then these third party tools kind of, will just fall to the wayside over time. At least that's what I think. But yeah, I can't say like, well, I've seen amazing results out of this one. I don't really create a lot of video right now. It's more of little spurts of, oh, I need some video for something, and then I'll do it, and then I forget about it for a couple months. Where
Well,
Sora was just kind of fun to play with.
and neither of our businesses are that dependent on video, so it is
No.
sort of it ends up being a side quest to play with some of this stuff, and I'd love to know more. So the other ones that people talk about are, one, I'm almost self-correcting. You can still access Sora 2, but you have to do it by API. So you're going to be paying for those
Mhm.
tokens, and they're deprecating it by September. So, which surprises me a little bit. Like, okay, how about you just price it in a way that you can access it? But the app is dead. So you have to be able to tap into it via
Yeah.
API instead, which is probably more lift than it's worth for most people.
Yeah.
Although when you think about workflows, like the ability to tap into the API, so you're generating the video and then there's an approval step and like moving on from there, that's the way that things are going. Another one you hear about is Kling AI, um,
Yeah. That's one I
which
probably see the most out there.
yeah, you see Kling a
Yeah.
lot. Remember the reason we don't have access to a lot of these in the US is because they're, to say, slightly fast and loose with IP. Like, you want
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse doing something that Mickey Mouse shouldn't do. Well, you could do that with
Not
Higgs
that not
Field
that not that
or,
OpenAI wasn't fast and loose with IP either, right?
yeah, a bad example with Disney since
When Sora
Sora and
launched, I mean,
Disney
yeah, you had Darth
had the
Vader playing
connection.
with Hello Kitty, and you just do whatever you want. Yeah.
But these are getting closer. And if you haven't actually checked these out, it's sort of funny. Like, go to YouTube and say Higgs Field AI or SeeDance. Again,
Yeah.
Higgs Field is a platform that can access SeeDance, but like see exotic examples and make the date range pretty recent because the people are developing skills around this stuff as well. that are matching to the tool. So the tool alone can do pretty amazing things, but with a few weeks, a few months of skill development, there are artists basically who are doing like really, really neat stuff. And if you haven't checked it out in a minute, you totally should. Ethan Mollick, we like to talk about Ethan Mollick at Wharton. He's always doing stuff with his otters. So it can be fun to see the generations of otters over time. And now he's
Yeah.
starting to do like video generation there.
We've seen video
Um,
otters. I haven't seen the video otters.
the other one is Google's Genie. Have you seen Google's Genie?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Google's Genie shows basically can build a 60-second interactive video game. Well, just a few weeks ago, they launched a version of Genie right into Google Maps, such that you can basically you could be looking at the streets of Rome or whatever, and like create a little like go-kart game that is actually using the street view of the streets of Rome to like navigate around.
It's really cool.
Sadly only available in the $250 Ultra plan, which I happen to know both of us are too cheap to have.
Yeah, not a chance for me right now. I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of all my Ultra plans. Speaking of Ultra plans and subscriptions and everything else, I've just been going through the most awful rotating frontier lab game ever lately, bouncing around, getting frustrated. And when we were chatting right before recording, you were talking about just tech stack du jour, right? Like what's your tech stack? And we always ask this question of, if you did have to start with one lab, which one would you start with? And I think a lot of it depends on what is your core workflow. Like, if it is all about generating images, you may not want to be using Claude because you can't generate images, right? There's some obvious things there. But, last we spoke, you were still just all in on Claude, and that was kind of the center of everything. And I've been talking to a lot of people who've been dealing with tons of just quality regression issues across the board. Maybe not with coding, and I'm just doing less coding on my projects these days. But I wondered if you were in that club of people noticing things happening that weren't happening before or not as often. Outages aside, like still like lots of outages. Like I keep experiencing little breaks in service, which is annoying, but they usually get resolved within 30 minutes to an hour. So disruptive, but not detrimental to a day. But lots of other stuff. I mean, I'll start with like writing output. I just feel like there's been so much regression, like just truly awful writing outputs. And I'd never used something just right out of the gates that was AI for any piece of writing I'd publish, whether it's just a social media post or a blog entry or newsletter or anything. But I feel like even with an outline or a first draft, like it has gotten really bad. And I've talked to 3 other people who do a lot of writing, and they noted the exact same thing. You don't do too much writing, right, Kevin, with any of these models. So you wouldn't have seen that. But what about just hallucinations in general? Like I have been getting tons of stuff that is just factually incorrect. And I call it out and I say, that's not true. And it will just say, you're right, I hallucinated. And I don't know if Sonnet just got a little more dumb with the recent Opus upgrade or what's going on, but I started noticing a lot of the things happening with Opus as well, in addition to just ripping through my usage as well, if I decide to use that model for any longer period of time. So have you noticed anything? Because people on Reddit have noticed. I've been in some of these threads and people are complaining like crazy.
I mean, we pledged that we're not going to talk about like the latest model releases, but I do
Yeah.
find that Opus 4.8, which was just released pretty much last week, has tightened up on certain forms of sycophancy, and I feel like it is a little bit more honest out there. I can't say that I'm noticing the type of things that you're saying, and I'm going to
Okay.
put a major like note on it because it actually lends itself into something that we wanted to talk about, which is controlling outputs with the different models and some of what they call the primitive like structures that you need to have in place to do it. And I think that the reason that I'm getting away with what I'm getting away with Claude Code in particular, and I'm building like crazy. I'm all kinds of stuff that I have going on at any given time as I look over my screen. I'm not allowed to run Claude Code during the podcast because it eats so many system resources, and it just came to mind that I'm probably running Claude Code, but I'm not. It's
On
not
a
actually
machine that
running
shouldn't be doing all that. Yeah, you need a
on a
bigger boat.
on
You
an
need a bigger boat. Yeah.
aged Mac M1. It like the poor little
Yeah.
critter is just gonna like
Yeah.
smoke and
Limping.
die. Anyway, I think the control. This is always going on. We are so deep in the weeds. We see these things more keenly than other people do. Those primary skill sets of being able to interpret results and not abdicating as the human are ever present. And I actually don't mind that we get reminded of it sometimes. That, like, yeah, no, really can't trust this. Like, you need to be reviewing things. And you need to be reminding your people that they need to review things. But
Yeah.
on the dev side, this is the part that I really want to push back on, because on our list of things to talk about today were skills. And I want to
Yeah.
add to that the skill or the primitive that is slash goal. So I am using a number of skills that are quality aligned. So they're doing constant code checks and feedbacks. It makes it pretty token efficient and it slows everything down, but nothing gets out of my coding process without passing certain quality control feedback loops. And so we'll talk about what skills are in in a moment, but probably the most important thing is the / goal primitive, which is first, it was created by OpenAI and it was rapidly adopted by Claude as well. And the idea here is that it's output based. So you type / goal, and then you have a prompt of what that output is supposed to look like at the end of the day. And you can be pretty elaborate about it. And what it does is it forces the coding engine, be it Codex or be it Claude Code, to go through loops until it actually meets that output. And what I'm finding is I can run a pretty complicated goal before bed and just walk off. And in the morning, like, it's done, it's feedback loops. Like, is it going to work perfectly? No. But that's
Well,
okay. Like, it's made real forward progress during the night. And
that's
because I
okay.
have
It only
these
costs you
other skills,
$4,000 that night.
but I'm not running it that way. I'm running it on a max plan, right? So, it
Yeah.
will time out, but like, it will get pretty far into the process. I don't need to be running 18 coding agents at once. I'm not running a dev house, right? So it works fine. So I mean, I get it. I get that the models ebb and they flow, and that's going to be a constant state of affairs, but they do continue to get better. And Sonnet of today is so much better than Sonnet of 6 months ago that I'm just not overly bound up over it.
I guess some of the stuff that I thought we were just past, I'm experiencing again in terms of hallucinations and stuff that's just factually incorrect or ignoring instructions. Kind of back to the thing with skills, right? I think that, we didn't really unpack what skills are or how we use
And
them.
we need to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the terminology gets a bit confusing as well, right? Like, what's the difference between a prompt or instructions or skills or an MD file, right? Like, all of these things in a Venn diagram are starting to coalesce. Like, they start to mean more and more of the same thing. And these skills could be, it's a basically you could call it a prompt, you could call it a set of instructions, you could call it a set of long instructions that are inside of a markdown file that's attached. And the idea is that instead of including them in a specific project that you're running, for example, you could basically just call that skill inside of that project because maybe it's not something that you want being used all the time inside that project, but you want to call it occasionally. And what we were just discussing earlier, Kevin, by earlier, I mean, I think we discussed it like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. The fact that with a dictation tool like Whisperflow, you can have all of these snippets. Basically, if I don't want to always type in my website URL or my LinkedIn profile or whatever it is, I can just have a keyword that I say, hey, Kevin, great to meet you. Let's connect. Here's mine. I say my LinkedIn profile, and then it populates the whole URL in there. Well, you can have snippets that are really, really long, really long. And I stopped using skills a while ago, and I just use these snippets now because unlike a skill that would just be specific to Claude, it doesn't matter what model I'm using, like what LLM I'm using. I can just say that snippet, I can invoke the same thing. So you have this goals one, for example. Another one that I use pretty frequently would be, challenge my thinking. And then I have like this, 3 long paragraphs of specific instructions that are asking for pushback and asking a whole number of questions about my assumptions. And are you sure I'm right? And can you fact check this? And on and on and on, right? And it just gets me a better output at the bottom. And it's not something that I want to do all the time, which is why before it was a skill and now I use it as a snippet. Is there any reason why you're still using skills, Kevin? Or is
Yeah,
it just kind of like a
absolutely.
habit or
And first, I think we need to clarify that what we're talking about is in normal GPT, in normal Claude, or in coding, you can build a skill, and they both have skill generators in them. So you go to customize in Claude. I forget exactly where it is in OpenAI, but you can create a skill, and a skill might be something like turn this transcript into a proposal, and the
yeah.
proposal is going to have X, Y, and Z section, and it needs to include these things and it needs to reference that or whatever. And as opposed to saving that as a prompt, because there was a long period of time when we were all saving prompts. You'd
Yeah.
like have a document somewhere that had all of these prompts, you called it a prompt library and you grabbed it. Well, with a skill, it's all of the data that's sitting behind or the information that's sitting behind the skill. All you need to do is type / RFP or proposal or whatever it is, and it's going to reference that skill and all the information you have.
But
So
just to be clear, that's still just text.
it's still just
It's
text,
just
but there are a
text.
couple of different reasons why you do it this way. And what Eli is saying is that he's using Whisper Flow, Super Whisper, and all of them have something similar here, which are verbal triggers that when you say a certain thing, in my case, I have one for paste morning briefing, and it's a prompt that's like crazy long. It's like 900 lines
Yeah.
long or something like that, that I dump into my daily flow that enriches a bunch of things. But in normal speech, I'm never going to say paste morning briefing. Like, so it's a kind of a safe term to use. But when I say it using Whisper Flow, it dumps in all 900 lines of the prompt right there. Okay. You could also do the same thing. People like us have been doing this for years. On Mac, you have keyboard shortcuts. So in my case, I would create a keyboard shortcut that's like underscore morning briefing. And if I type underscore morning briefing, it would auto complete all of that. So there are basically many ways of doing this. You ask, why do you use the actual skills? Number one, I'll correct what you said a minute ago, that the /goal skill is actually very complicated. So it's kind of a trigger as opposed to being like a skill that's in the rest of these. So that one is one that you need to call as opposed to trying to replicate its underlying logic. But the rest of them, one in both Claude and GPT, you can share them. So, like a custom GPT, you could share with your whole customer service team. You can
Right.
share a skill as well so that everybody on the team can do / angry customer or, whatever the heck the skill is that deals with that. So that's a really important organizational use. And if it's all locked up in your Whisper Flow, you can actually share snippets through Whisper Flow and you can do like kind of neat
Yeah.
stuff there as well. So if you I don't think I've actually met an organization that's unified their Whisper Flow, but that's a thing. There's like a
I
team function in it.
I know, and it's kind of wild to think that more organizations haven't already because it's such a productivity unlock to be using that tool.
Yeah.
Like,
But they're just like everybody uses it individually. It's sort of funny. Like I think about that. I think half my team or
totally.
more, probably everybody's using it.
Yeah.
And we
They're
haven't
all on
linked
their
it
individual
together
accounts.
in a way that we could like start managing it. But of course, they want to charge more for it. And I won't lie, on Whisperflow, I totally huge respect to them for getting to market and having something so powerful. But this is totally something that's going to vanish as soon as
I
like
know.
like Apple's like, yeah, okay, we're going to make Siri better. And anyway, business question. The other
Yeah.
place where the skills are really important are baked right into your instructions. So when we talk in a more techie way about like our Claude.md, which is the guidance document that sits behind a Claude coding project that goes into Claude Code, or an agents.md, which is how the other platforms refer to this. This is the markdown file that has all the guidance doc stuff about your project. in my case, I have about 10 different skills that are built right in there. So there's a skill one of my team built called naysayer, and it's great. It's the one that like goes back and reviews code, and basically the Claude MD file says once you're at this stage of development, invoke naysayer such that naysayer does its own thing and loops back, and that is a much more efficient use of space because naysayer and its very long prompt are only being invoked in certain conditions as opposed to being invoked every time the system wants to read that Claude
Right.
MD file.
Right.
So I know that sounds slightly complicated, and building the skills, you need to understand what you're doing as far as the skills you're building, but there are a lot of skill libraries out there too where people have built really novel skills to do things and probably nefarious things too. So, make sure you're not
Yeah,
just
there's a
like
lot of wacky
downloading
stuff out
random
there too.
skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
The naysayer
Somebody
skill
built
is
a skill to suck all your bank account and credit card numbers
yes,
from you.
exactly.
Password
It's
locker. Yeah.
it
Just
writes a
gonna install
haiku.
that. Yeah.
It's a haiku skill, but it also accesses, your
Yeah.
drive and does a bunch of other stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
user beware, but there are a lot of skill libraries out there. So you don't necessarily have to create these. You can browse around and find them, but it's an unlock. There's also another level of it called hooks that I don't think we're going to go into, which are
Yeah.
like you, yeah.
That's a lot. Well, I mean, going back to
Kevin, get back in your box.
back to your box. Just kind of going back to assessing these different model releases, and we don't get into all the nuances of all model releases because it's frankly exhausting. So it's happening every single week at this point. But anybody who uses this stuff a lot often has their own little set of benchmarks, right? To see, okay, is this better or the same or worse than what I was using before? Because if you are bouncing around as we do between a bunch of these different labs, then sometimes you've got to make that determination. And I had this realization that at the end of the day, largely when I talk to people about, how are you liking this new model or this release, or do you feel like Gemini is slipping? Do you still use it? It's still largely vibes, like because you can look at the data, but based on your own workflow, it doesn't really add up to much until you actually start using it and seeing what kind of outputs you're getting or what kind of outputs you're not getting. And it's just a really weird thing to think about that that's where we are today with this technology, that we're assessing these little machines on vibes, on like this kind of anecdotal feedback of how it's being presented, the way that we use it at work. And some of the weird things that I started seeing with Claude just kind of lying to me or saying it was doing things when it wasn't doing things. Like it just seemed to be happening so much these last 2 weeks, like so much. And I can't get into some of the specific things like in work because of privacy reasons, but I use AI all the time for personal reasons. And we're both fans of the bicycles, and I've got this electronic drivetrain that is so rock solid that I never really learned how to adjust it because it never needs adjusting until it didn't work. I'm like, oh, great. I'm just going to talk to Claude about this, and I'll start and be like, hey, this is what's happening between these two gears. And it gave me this whole sequence of instructions and things to do. And it just made things markedly worse. At the end of it, everything got worse. It's like, gosh, that's so strange. And then I'm like, I'm just going to go old school and look at a YouTube video for this specific adjustment. And it was just so far off anything Claude told me that I then went back to the chat and said, I feel like you just made that whole thing up. Like none of this is real. And it just was like, yeah, you caught me. I just didn't even check. Like I just basically invented this whole thing just right off the cuff, and ran you through it. I'm like, wow, that's
Okay.
wild. Like that's
So
absolutely wild.
So you say you're running your life on vibes. And I won't lie that my organization is also sort of doing the same of like
Yeah.
I get the feel of this and we definitely understand the risks here and keeping humans in the loop to review output and whatnot. But for you go up the chain a little bit to organizations that are let's just say subject to litigation,
Hmm.
and this becomes more than existential for them. This
Yeah.
becomes like a giant issue for them to resolve. And those organizations are putting governance structures in place that do prompt logging and response assessment. And they're looking for prompt drift.
Yeah.
And actually, they're doing things. I wish I could cite who this was, but they're looking for data bleeding into outside models on an enterprise level, like implying that you have leakage in some of your systems. So they're putting like small pieces of data that are out there, and if it appears in a trained model, it means that it's been like worked out of your environment, which is not great. But the challenge with things like this is they're hard and they're expensive to maintain because they're so bespoke to the individual actions of the company. And there are plenty of companies that are out there that are selling these solutions, and I think it's a bit of a hard row to hoe on both sides because they have to be adaptable to what that individual company is doing. And then they have to morph to whatever the latest and greatest is. So when the models switched over from 4.7 to 4.8, your backend API stayed on 4.7, or did it? And did it actually, did
Right.
things actually change such that you can actually flag when that happens? So this is happening, and I think that as the industry continues to mature, this is going to feel much more standard, such that there's measurement between these models. Like, the case of the electronic drivetrain, it's probably because of scarcity of training data. Like, there's a bunch of reasons why that could be, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think it was just too closely pitched to other just really wacky things. And I mean, to your point exactly, it's why deploying this inside of anybody's business, let alone a big enterprise company, can't just end with, and here's your license, guys, have fun. Right. It's a little bit, it goes a little bit deeper than that when the stakes are higher. We talk about our chief of staff that we love, our chief of staff agents that will check our email and our calendar availability and give us this nice morning briefing. And I really enjoy having that. And part of that is looking up local weather, because if weather looks good and there's a window on my calendar, I want it to book that window. And so I don't get any calls, so I can go out and go for a run or ride my bike or something. Yesterday, I noticed that the weather it gave me was like 15 degrees higher for the high than what my weather widget on the phone showed. I'm like, that's a really hot day. So I just, hey, are you sure about that? I said, let me check. I said, no, I stand corrected. It's going to be 15 degrees cooler. I said, okay, well, how did you come up with that? He said, well, I just went to AccuWeather and I looked at a historical average and I gave you that number. I'm like, but the instructions say to go to a completely different weather platform to get the number for that day, the actual forecast. Why'd you ignore the instructions? Like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. So that was just stuff that I wasn't seeing, let's call it a month ago, ever. And I'm seeing it more and more. So it just kind of makes you wonder behind the scenes, like what levers are getting pulled, what knobs are getting turned that then result in something like that happening. And I mean, to some degree, all of the models just do spooky stuff. But when you start seeing a bunch of outputs happening where like, this is just acting different. Another one, Kevin, you'll love this one. I, at some point, got so frustrated with something that it just couldn't do. And as we do, we yell and scream into our microphones with the dictation. And like, I'm like, man, like, I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm going to go to this other model. I can't stand this anymore. And it picked up like some sense of suicidality in my voice or something, because for the entire upcoming week, it kept asking me, are you okay? And giving me suicide hotline numbers. I'm like, I'm not going to kill myself. I was just frustrated over and over and over again, like just weird stuff. So anyways, yeah, I've just found it really interesting / frustrating. It's some of the changes that kind of come without explanation, and how we're in this time of it's all moving so rapidly and fluidly that it's really difficult to kind of keep up with and know what direction to pick, as far as we can't all use all the models all the time. Especially at work, you've got to kind of pick something and go deeper in it, or else it just becomes too messy and too complex to share with other people, especially.
So it's also important to remember that hallucinations are both a feature and a bug. That what you're describing are the throes of a probabilistic system. And the we used to talk all the way back in the dim days of 2023. We used to talk about temperature in prompts. Remember that? And the
Yep.
temperature in a prompt, it still exists, is it's gauging on a basically a 0 to 10 scale of how cold it is, as in how deterministic. A zero temperature prompt, it's going to snap to the highest correlation. whereas a 10 has it like on psychedelics, and it's
Gets
just
really
like,
creative.
whoa, it's really creative. It's just making stuff up.
Like makes up words even, like words that don't exist, or yeah,
And
it's
then
like reading poetry from an alien. Yeah.
model weights play into how that works of what is going to be the highest correlation output, et cetera. And I think that we're experimenting, we're seeing some swings around with what that means, and there's probably some economizing going on. I don't have any real insight into this, but the right way to validate output is to run prompt on prompt on prompt, and that just gets really expensive to do. When you look at thinking modes of all
Yeah.
of these LLMs, that's what they're doing. They're basically thinking about it by running a prompt on top of it in the again. And if you're behind the scenes and you're resource constrained, it wouldn't surprise me if the dial for how much it's going to think has been dialed back a little bit, such that it's getting a little bit faster and looser and not catching the things that are coming to your attention. Again, I don't know that for a fact, but it could make sense. But this is just a point in time that,
Yeah.
again, like Sonnet. I think Sonnet's a great. So Sonnet is one of the Claude models. We were talking about it earlier. It's very cost effective. It scores really, really well. It's faster than Opus. It's way cheaper than Opus, et cetera. It's Sonnet 4.6, I think, or have they actually gone to 4.7? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It is, if that model continues to get cheaper, that will be a check model for Opus 5 or whatever it is that
Right.
will be part of that thinking process behind the scenes. So as those kind of subordinate or lower end models keep like incrementing up, these things will get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did get frustrated enough in the last 2 weeks that I started cheating on Claude and going back to Gemini, went back to GPT. And it's funny. So just because GPT does have so much rolled up into one platform, like image generation and the custom GPTs and just all the other things that you can do, I thought, is this where I should be going? Like, is this the horse I should bet on? And I'll say one thing, like out of the gates, blazing fast, like so much faster than last time I had really gone deep on it, really, really fast. And so I decided to let it defend itself, right? And so what I did is I dumped in a bunch of my instruction MD files into it, said, these are my common use cases. These are the things I do every day. These are the outputs I'm looking for, and said, give me a side by side comparison using as much recent data as you can. You've got to go deep on the web because I know your training history isn't really up to calendar date. And tell me, what do you think is a better choice? And on almost everything, it was convincing me to stick with Claude. Like it was telling me that Claude is better at all this stuff. I'm like, why are you giving me the answer I didn't want to hear? Like, what are you doing? So then I did a bunch of experiments in Gemini as well. And I think you also had kind of taken a little bit of a Gemini break for the most part. Have you gone back recently and seen like all of the UI updates on both web and mobile? Like it is wild. They really did a big overhaul and fixed a lot of the things that, I mean, for example, I felt like if somebody hadn't used the video generation before, you kind of had to look for it in a completely different place. Like, wait, where's the website where I do that? Everything's tucked in the sidebar now. They've made a huge effort to unify everything and give you access to all of the tools from one main sidebar, which just wasn't there before. The mobile app is way cleaner. It also gives you a bunch more access. I feel like Gemini Pro is still like really painfully slow, like slower than Opus. Like it is just really, really slow to get outputs. So I don't know, buddy. For now, like I don't have the time or energy to go any further. And I'm just sticking with Claude and hoping that some of this stuff gets fixed, that they turn the dials the other way and make it stop lying to me and stuff like that. Yeah.
So the answer is I haven't really experimented too much with the Gemini chat interface. There are Gemini tools that I use. I mentioned VO3 earlier. The ability to take a transcript. I used that yesterday to take a video, put it in Gemini, and have it suck in all of the elements of the video. That's something that only Google is going to be able to do. I'm working a lot with GPT mainly because I have clients who are deeply committed to GPT, which I absolutely respect because, switching gears in the middle of this like Claude, renaissance isn't necessarily the best idea if you've already developed faculty with the platform. And I'll tell you that it's super surprising how limited GPT can be on certain things that Claude just does great. For instance, Atlas browser, like forever ago, the GPT browser, it basically doesn't do anything with forms or sites. You can't really get a GPT plugin that is legit, that is going to do the things that the Chrome plugin can do. So a
Yeah.
demo I frequently do is like open up a survey or something like that, and then use Whisperflow to basically free form your response to all of the questions. It's going to suck them in. It's going to populate them all. And the form is just being filled in front of you. Or often I'll put up a like an IRS.
Using Claude's Chrome extension, you
Yep,
mean?
using Claude's Chrome
And
extension.
Cowork?
Yep, and it
Okay.
works great. I'm not
Yeah.
not using Cowork. Technically, there's semantics there, but
Okay.
I'm using the Claude Chrome extension. But the GPT, there is no GPT extension
Oh,
that works
gotcha. You're just
right.
using the chat in the extension in the sidebar
Yes,
to
but
do that. Okay.
it also, in fact, one of them just popped up. It's funny. So that's probably a Cowork item that popped up. It's doing something in LinkedIn on my behalf. It's just looking for something. It's not doing sketchy things like your various agents have done.
Right, but a word of warning, buddy. They're deploying so much anti-bot and anti-AI
Yeah, yeah,
detection
yeah.
right now that even running the extension while you have LinkedIn open is setting off flags. That's what's happening
Yeah,
right now.
it's doing a search. It's doing a
Yeah.
search. It's not doing a write. So anyway, I think I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm not too worried about it. So the other places where GPT has really been frustrating is it's not well integrated into the Microsoft world. I can't believe that I'm so excited about Microsoft, and it's a result of the Claude integration with Microsoft and how
Which,
flipping.
to be fair, was just like a month ago, right?
It was just like a month ago, but it's
Yeah.
amazing. Like, it absolutely works as far as it suddenly all of the promise of Copilot, forget Copilot, just use Claude and be able to work between apps. But GPT is only available in Word or in Excel and in PowerPoint. So you can do some financial analysis type stuff by opening up GPT as an add-on in Excel, and you might be able to do some sort of work within PowerPoint, but it's so much more limiting than being able to have the Outlook connection and have the Word connection and et cetera. And I almost like pause as I'm trying to get into a workflow that I just can't do the things in GPT that I want to do that I can do pretty easily in Claude at the
Yeah.
moment. Plus, Claude's native. I know I'm a fanboy, but and Claude definitely has issues as far as stability and access and cost and et cetera. But the ability to put out just a beautiful, well formatted document like directly in Claude, like they're gorgeous. And then move that over to Word and make it a template and be able to interact with it via an LLM. That stuff's really, really cool.
It
So,
works really well. I mean, I'm doing the same thing, but with Google Docs because I'm not in the Microsoft world anymore.
but I
But
I go to Google Docs,
same thing applies.
but it doesn't really work that well. Like
What's the
I
difference?
found
Why not? Like the
it
formatting?
it just no, it's junk compared to.
Huh.
I'm telling you, it is
Okay.
night and day between using Gemini in Google and the things that it can do and what Claude can do in Microsoft. And
But I
I
feel
like.
like but Claude and Google ironically play together better than Gemini and Google Docs.
Well, am I missing something? Is there a Claude plugin to Google Workspace that I didn't know about?
But yeah, for Drive,
Like
yeah.
right in
Okay,
the.
caveat. So say that you have just like a big CSV file or a text file or MD file or something. You want to dump in and give it some instructions and say, make me a Google Sheet, right? It'll do it and it'll do it amazingly and it will do it better than Gemini, funny enough. But if you want to then say, oh, you know what? Add this column after to the right of column G, it can't do it. It can't actually go back and edit it yet. This has got to change. But you can have that amendment and then it'll spin up an entirely new sheet with all the previous data and the new things that you wanted for the amendment, right? So it can create all these new sheets or docs, but it can't go in and actually edit them. And when we were talking about, taking our instructions for all of our projects and making them portable, and where do you put those so that it can access them from any web-based model? And you and I talked about like, oh wow, the ClickUp connection just works really great. And
Hmm.
ClickUp docs do that really well. The reason why I ended up there to begin with, I tried to do that with the Drive connector, and it would write the instructions amazingly. But every time I tried to update the instructions, that's where I hit the wall. It would have to create a whole new doc instead of editing it. So and I think that's just a limitation with their MCP, like just with what they have access to. So either it's going to change or it won't change, and they just want to keep it like in the Google ecosystem and just have that be something that Gemini can eventually do. Right now, Gemini doesn't do as well of a job as Claude does with all those Google Workspace connectors. So that's where I'm
All
at with
right.
it. Yeah.
So changing gears just a little bit, I think
Yeah.
we referenced this earlier, but just a quick take on your actual day to day like tech stack. We talked a
Yeah.
lot just now about different models, and obviously we're using the browser, we're bouncing around, we're doing the things as far as like personal productivity and connectors. But when we talk about like building workflows and things, a year ago we would have been obsessed with N8N or Zapier or Make or something like that. And I can't tell you the last time I've been in any of those. What is your go-to tech stack right now?
Yeah. My go-to tech stack, smaller. It's way smaller. And I don't know if we'll be able to get into all of this. We don't have a ton of time left. But, I've been in the agency world for 15 years. Started off building enterprise software, mobile apps, stuff like that, which that world was rapidly getting eroded by things like Cloud Code and Codex, to the point where the agency made a huge pivot into doing the things that we talked about on this show. So building AI tools for other companies and those types of services. And, we partner together often on those types of projects. And my tech stack was changing basically every week at that point. And I've completely exited. I'm still acting as an advisor to the agency, but I've sold my shares. I'm doing something completely new. And honest truth, Kevin, and this is why this is going to be our last episode together. I'm using a lot less AI in general, or at least trying to, for the things that I'm spending more time on right now, which is a lot of writing. I think we're kind of turning a corner with writing where there is so much AI slop being generated out there right now, whether it is short form social media stuff or long form blogs, essays, whatever it is, that I think we're on the precipice of a renaissance of real writing again, where AI might be an assistant to help you build outlines or come out with new directions of thinking or ideas. But I'm doing all of my writing just old school again. Like I'm actually just writing everything. I'm still requiring a lot of image generation and charts and graphs and things like that. And because I haven't like went all the way back into the OpenAI ecosystem, Nano Banana for me is like good enough. Like I've seen all the benchmark tests. I know that GPT 5.6 image gen is better with small amounts of text and catching typos and stuff like that. But right now, for most of what I do, Nano Banana is good enough. So right now, I still have all the models, but it's mostly Claude. ClickUp is kind of my central database for holding all of the instructions, and I even use it as a CRM. And then I'm still in the world of Google mostly for image generation at this point, and of course whisper flow all day long. I don't think I could ever go back otherwise. I was going to actually say, Kevin, there was a couple times this week. I don't know if I'm sure you experienced it. Whisper flow is having issues. And what ends up happening, right, is that you're talking and nothing happens. And you look at the bottom of your screen and there's this little pinwheel saying it's taking longer than expected. And sometimes longer than expected means you could actually type faster and just get the thing in there. Oh my gosh, having to go back to typing. I was like, I don't think I could ever do this. Like, this is so painful. It was so awful to have those issues, and they're largely resolved right now. But I was like, oh, this is a rough week all the way around. So that I will continue to use forever and ever. I'm trying to think what else, but it's like I'm actually trying to shrink my tech stack right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fair.
yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll share my tech stack in a future episode at some point, more on the coding and development side as far as front end and back end and things like
yeah,
that. I've been having some adventures between Cloudflare versus Supabase and there are pluses and minuses to that, and it sort of skirts around with what is too complicated to talk about. But I think it's fair for people to understand the types of things that people like us are actually using day to day. Like, there are always edge cases when you're going to have to use something else. But
Yeah.
so
Having walked away from the agency, my day to day is now like I'm just not doing any coding stuff for a while. I'm going to get back to it because there's some clinician tools that I want to build. But right now, I've got like bigger fish to fry. So
so tell us what you're going to do with yourself, and like what your new passion and project is, and where people are going to be able to find you.
yeah, yeah. So the honest truth is that agency life is hard. Like being the founder of an agency is hard. You can ask anybody running an agency. I don't care what kind of agency it is, if it's software dev, performance marketing, PR, you name it. Like it's tough and it's a lot of 60 to 80-hour work weeks. I've two of my kids are elementary school aged. And so first and foremost, I'm just spending more time with them. That's what I'm doing with myself. And nobody will find me anywhere with that. I don't even post on social media. But my wife has been a licensed therapist for 14 years. And, her limitation for how many patients she could see has been, well, how many hours are available where I'm not watching kids? And we made a decision together when we had kids that we weren't going to outsource that whole parenting thing. We were just kind of the thought of, well, if we're going to have kids, we actually want to be the ones parenting our kids. And that means one of us is going to have to sacrifice more than the other. And that's been me for a long time. Like I've just been putting in the hours talking to AI all day. And I decided that it's time. It's all going by too fast. So I'm not only spending more time with the kids, but I'm helping her grow her practice. And she has a specialty in pain psychology. So she's been doing it for 14 years. She did all her clinician hours at the Pain Psychology Center in Los Angeles under this guy named Alan Gordon, who's been called kind of like the back pain Jesus, just curing people of their back pain. And so I actually, to be better informed of the whole space, have actually gone through pain reprocessing therapy training myself. I had a life changing experience where I had chronic back pain for over 3 years and then used this modality to be completely free of it. And there's just all this recent research that has come out in the last 5 years showing that it's really also just this idea of neuroplasticity is underlying cause of so much treatment resistant anxiety and depression and everything else. So with what's going on with AI right now and the billions that are being pumped into building companions for people or therapists for people that are just AI. It's my prediction, my wild prediction is that we're going to see a loneliness epidemic that makes everything that happened with social media in the last 20 years just pale in comparison with what's going to be coming up. And so I'm all in on mental health, Kevin. Like I'm all in on mental health. So going to hang out with my kids a lot more, going to help her grow this practice. We're onboarding some clinicians. It's called the Wise Mind Group. And so our specialty is pain reprocessing therapy, and then this other modality called radically open dialectical behavior therapy, which kind of also gets to more of the root instead of just the expressions of anxiety and depression. So that's what I'm doing. And then also doing some executive coaching, still doing some AI mentoring for some people because listen, I'm a geek. I've been in tech for 28 years. It's not going to just be purged out of me. I'm going to keep up on all of this stuff and we're going to keep talking about all the things that we're using and building, I'm sure.
And
But yeah, it's going to be a little more secondary in my life now.
And meanwhile, I'm going to have to find a new co-host that looks like you, because if they don't actually look like you, I'm going to have to redo all of the graphics and everything else. And even though I have AI, that seems like a lift for me. So
You make sure it's somebody that in those graphics you're comfortable with embracing in the pre-roll because
yes,
so
yes.
you have to. I would highly recommend changing all of that because, like we said, this is the worst it's ever going to be, and whatever video generation was used at that point in time is definitely worse than what's available right now.
So over
It's
the
gotten
next few
better.
weeks, so over the next few weeks, I'm going to have a couple of other co-hosts on. We're going
You're
to
going to
just get
rotate some through.
live. We're going to rotate this up through, and we'll put it to the audience. It's going
And
to be
I have some guests for you too. And then I can come back as a guest, which would
as a
be
guest.
so fun. And I can talk about, AI replacement dysfunction, right? Which is going to be making it into the DSM. This is so wild that they're predicting that just the disruption in the workplace with people's identity being wrapped up in this is the thing I got so good at doing, or this is the thing I got my master's degree in. And now, hey, this model can just do it better than me. right? Like I'm not as good as the machine. And that creates a lot of just disruption with identity and a whole cascading effect of problems. So that or AI induced loneliness is another thing that is coming in. So lots of intersection with mental health and AI. And we've talked about AI work density, right? Or burnout or the FOMO. Like I didn't deploy my 17 agents before I went to bed tonight and I'm falling behind because all my competitors are going to be doing so much better than me, right? These are all real things that at the end of the day, we want a life a little more free of suffering. We want to sleep well at night. We want to be happy. And that's just going to be my primary focus right now, and I think AI is going to be a big part of that story. So,
All right, sir.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
it's been a good ride, and
it's
we'll
been
look
fun.
forward to having you back on. The show
Yeah,
isn't going anywhere. I really I get a thrill out of doing this every week and trying to make AI as accessible and yet useful and practical without getting platitudinous about the latest news or the latest model change
which is
or
so
whatever.
challenging.
It's there are plenty of places to listen to that. So look forward to seeing you on the flip side socially. And
That's right.
yeah, I guess I'm going to play the outro,
You do
and
it.
it's going to have a whole bunch of stuff about the company that you don't run anymore. But that's
Hey,
cool.
go
That-
be patron anyways. It benefits me. I'm on a like a yeah. So.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to send us a question to answer on the show, email me at elijah@spark6.com. That is SPARK, the number 6.com, or Kevin at ascendlabs.ai. To learn more about AI strategy and training for your business, visit Kevin's company, Ascend AI Labs, at ascendlabs.ai. And to learn more about design and development of custom AI solutions, visit my agency at spark6.com. You can also sign up for my free newsletter, AI Framework Friday, by visiting spark6.com/newsletter.